Welcome to VG Cantina, your video game podcast. I am your host, M. Let's talk about some video games. Before I get into the news here, it seems to me that this podcast episode is going to be mostly about one thing. It all stems from the news that's come out these past 2 days. It's something that we've talked in the previous podcast before. And also because I have been making some other videos for the playthrough side of things on this channel, I don't have a lot of things to talk about today about the games I've been playing, because really I've been sharing my thoughts during the games that I've, during the gameplay of the games I've played, which, if you don't know, has been the Titan Souls and Death's Door, both by Acid Nerve. Great games. Don't need to say much about them other than they're fantastic. You can definitely see the DNA and how things changed from one to another. The first game was made by 2 guys, and then they expanded their team a little bit to, I think, maybe 5 or 6 people for Death's Door. Again, both amazing games. Such a great indie developer. I can't wait to see what their next game will be in the next, maybe 4 years or so. Since indies are from a single indie company, those will probably take longer, but the wait is worth it. We got another promising and fantastic indie dev in the world, and that's always a good thing. But now for the negative, which is going to comprise most of the show. I'm sorry if you don't really want to hear me just complain and rant, but it's kind of the only thing that's been going on, and we might talk about some other stuff near the end, but this is mostly going to be basically a Ubisoft hate podcast or hate show. But without further ado, let's just go ahead and go with the first thing here. And the first thing is the situation with Skull and Bones from Ubisoft. About maybe 8 years ago or 7 years ago, however long, the Ubisoft announced and showed off this pirate game called Skull and Bones. I think it was like a spin-off of a mode from Assassin's Creed Black Flag, that mostly focused on naval warfare, with ships and pirates and whatnot. And that was, I think, maybe 8 years ago when they announced it. Not 100% too sure exactly when, but they made a big deal out of it, and it looked pretty promising. I wasn't too big on ship combat, but it's not something I wouldn't completely rule out. But like I said, I've never been the biggest Assassin's Creed fan, especially with Black Flag. But it looked interesting, and I was at the time interested in trying it before I grew a very large distaste for Ubisoft. But it seems here that Skull and Bones has gone into alpha after 8 years of development. So with game development, from my knowledge, is a game goes into like the initial phases, into maybe another phase, to alpha, to something maybe in between, and then beta, and then it ships out at a certain point. So this initial thing is funny because I remember at one of the E3 presentations, I believe, or one of their presentations for Skull and Bones, they said that you could sign up to try a beta of the game. So at some point, and I think here in this little article here, it says that it's been rebooted several times. At some point, they had this idea that they had to be in beta, and then they just completely canned it and sent it back, which in itself isn't a terrible thing, because if it's not working out, it's not working out, and you got to restart. But to go as far as announce it, show it off, say for players to sign up for a beta, and then just go radio silent is just astounding to me. Some other things here: had a budget of $120 million, multiple almost annual reboots. Jesus. the lack of vision and toxic work culture. That seems to be a key marking for Ubisoft for a lot of their places. And it looks like they have a deal with Singapore. I think they have a studio in Singapore, but they have this deal with the Singaporean government that makes Skull and Bones a requirement to complete. So from what I'm learning about this, and I think I've heard with other countries as well, like with CD Projekt Red, some game studios actually get funding from governments from other countries for the promise of creating jobs for the people at that country. So Singapore would have been one of them. And you can't really take, or normally you can't take a government's money, which if this budget is over 120 million, I can't imagine it being a small cash withdraw from the Singaporean government and then just cancel it and say, oh, that's it, and then just fire everyone from the Singapore studio, because that's most likely what they would have done, because it's Ubisoft, because of course they would. So they have to complete this game, and they most likely have to use the studio from Singapore. I don't know anything about the studio in Singapore or whatever they're doing with Singapore, but it has to be complete, and there's most likely restrictions that have to include Singapore. So this game is a trash fire, and we're going to be able to see it become a trash fire because it has to be completed and it has to ship. So it's been 8 years of it being started and canceled and started and not even canceled, rebooted, started and rebooted, started and rebooted, over and over and over again. Like, how awful. I mean, like I said, this isn't surprising from Ubisoft. They have a whole bunch of games. They've been going, in my opinion, they've been going downhill for a while with a lot of their Tom Clancy games, with a lot of their free-to-play games, with a lot of their games as a service, with the Assassin's Creed franchise. Really, there are two successful Ubisoft things that they've made, in my opinion. That is Rainbow Six Siege, and that's mostly because it's supported by its esports scene, and its developers are fantastic with it. And Mario plus Rabbids, the XCOM style game, and that's mostly, I can assume, probably because Nintendo is involved in some way, and the studio for that game, from what I've seen, is also fantastic. But everything else of Ubisoft has either failed, has shown no sign of having any future, or just isn't even worth mentioning because it will slowly and quietly die out. Not from failure, not from terrible management, but just because it's so mediocre, no one will care about it. And mostly it's probably because it's a live services game, and if that happens, that's essentially death for that game. And this is just another thing of it, because if I remember correctly, this was also not going to be a story player game. This was going to be like a service game where you collect ship parts or whatever, and you fight other players or whatever, and you it's like a RPG or something. This was most likely going to be something like that as well. And to no surprise, it's on fire. And it's just, like, I like pirates. I really enjoy the aesthetic and the whole thing. And I said that I wasn't a fan of ship combat, which wasn't entirely true, because I can think of a lot of games that have something with ship combat that I really enjoy and really liked. Sea of Thieves is fantastic. It's thriving. It's super popular. The pirate level in Kingdom Hearts 3, I really liked that combat that was there. That was really cool, even though it was only for a little bit. The quest for a booty for Ratchet and Clank, sure, there was no combat of naval ships, I think, if I remember correctly, but the pirate theme is fun, because it's a fun theme that the human civilization has come with. And sure, it's shrouded with terribleness, but the idea of being free, swashbuckling, pirates. It's its own word. It is fun. It's cool. And I don't know. I don't know. How does this keep happening? And I sound surprised, which I really shouldn't, but it's just so like we have multiple news with Ubisoft today. Of course, it's been over a course of 2 days, and it's not like 5 or 6, but it's more than one when it really shouldn't be. And it's not even on Friday or anything like that to where it would have gotten lost in the news cycle. This is just middle of the week. That they're just, it's like they almost don't even care anymore, and I hate it. But yeah, that's it for Skull and Bones. Honestly, I can't wait for this thing to come out. Hopefully it does well, because I root for the devs, but I just hate Ubisoft. I really do. I can make a distinction between the devs being great and then Ubisoft being just a terrible shithole. Kind of like with, CD Projekt Red or Fallout 76. You see the devs that are talented there, and they're only crushed by the leadership and, big businesses that control them. And it's sad. Because you technically need both to get some of the games that we get. Sure, you have these indie studios that I love and praise and enjoy, but even they at a certain point kind of do need the bigger people to to show them up in the air, like Nintendo with Hades, and Microsoft with their ID thing. And PlayStation with all the other things like the China Hero Project and whatnot. But it's just sad when you have these kind of things just go on, and you just see these games die and these devs suffer, and you don't really want that. But next news, again with some more Ubisoft. Just another thing. They released their sales for the quarter 21-22. And they mentioned a revival of Beyond Good and Evil 2. Again, another game that was showed off super long ago, and we assume died. It probably did die because they're using the word revival. No mention of a date, nothing. Another sad thing, because Beyond Good and Evil 1 was an amazing game. It had great cult status. To me, it was kind of like, I don't know why, but in my head, I have it kind of like the same level as Psychonauts. And look at it now. Psychonauts is going to have a sequel after all these years, and it's coming out August, and it looks amazing, and it's great. The studio got bought out by Microsoft, and Microsoft is a great company. Well, I mean, I'm using the word great as in good for the developers, good to the developers. And you see some magic coming out, and you have Good and Evil. It was created from Ubisoft, but Ubisoft sucks. And then you see the literal Good and Evil 2, the sequel, announced, showed off, kind of had an interesting story, was a single player experience, and it's just dying. And it's just, also they mentioned some more mobile games coming out, which is great. And it's going to segue into this next little topic here, which is also great. And that is Ubisoft's other mobile game. If I can find it here. I think it just came out. Or information. Okay, yes. Here it is. Tom Clancy's Elite Squad. It was launched last August on mobile, and it's going to shut down in October. Fantastic. Just absolutely great. I remember that E3. I distinctly remember that E3. Because people were excited. It was like, oh my god, Splinter Cell, is it coming out? And they saw it, and they saw this, and there was a tinge of excitement, and then they saw all these other characters, and they were confused. And it was a mobile game, and people completely looked at it with dead eyes, and their soul leaving their body, because a part of them died inside. And I don't know if this is also that same game that had that controversy with the Black Fist evil organization that was completely tone deaf when that information came out. And people were like, hey, what the fuck? And Ubisoft was like, no, it's not, it's not technically that and whatnot. And it's just there's a whole bunch of tone deafness with that, and I'm pretty sure it is. I think this is the one. I think the story was this secret shadow organization is so evil that we have to get the good guys and the bad guys to team up and destroy them and whatnot. And I'm pretty sure this is it. This was it, because I'm seeing here all these characters that who the fuck knows who these people are? Who even gives a shit? The only thing that's recognizable is Splinter Cell, and he's the front, dead center of the entire picture, because of course he is. Because, at this point, to end this thought, because I'm going to ramble on some more, anything that Ubisoft launches that is either mobile or a live service or some sort of free-to-play thing, I'm assuming right now it's going to die. If I hear anything about any of those games that's live service or whatnot, or any of those requirements, I'm going to assume it's going to die in a year or two of its release. And if it's a single-player game, I'm going to assume it's dead until it's actually coming out. Because that seems to be the case with Ubisoft. And I don't understand why there's some people... I guess I do understand, because people like the type of games that come out. Because again, I think the devs are extremely talented and whatnot. And Ubisoft is technically a big studio or company or whatever that has all these devs around the world. And they do foster some talent with some stuff that they do in teaching or whatnot, I believe. So they have all these great devs that make these great stuff. That even though Ubisoft is shit and they ship out shit, the devs somehow, in their amazing talent, mold that shit into a polished ball. Kind of like they literally polish a turd to a sheen so it looks pretty. That's my analogy. It's not a great analogy, but that's what I'm using here. I'm just I don't want to say mad or angry because it's video games. I'm just annoyed, extremely annoyed, frustrated even, that this continues to happen. And there's some people that I don't know, defend or say, oh, well, you just don't like Ubisoft, or, well, I mean, I don't like Ubisoft, but you're just a hater of it. You can only kind of downplay what they do, and it's frustrating because it constantly happens every single time. It happens every single time. It might happen a little differently, or it might take a different length of time to happen, but it's going to happen. It's still going to happen, and I don't know. It's just a thing. This solidifies my distaste for Ubisoft even more. I don't think I will ever be able to get excited for Ubisoft unless, other than the Mario and Rabbids thing, that's pretty exciting. But I'm going to chalk that up to it being Nintendo. And, yeah, it's frustrating. It's sad. Because, there are devs there that are probably really awesome, and I really want to root for them and see what they can make. But at some point, you just got to kind of cut it out, or cut it off. Because what can you do? It's Ubisoft. Their logo is literally a pile of shit just from the top view. That's all it is. Alright. Man, I said I was going to finish the point about the mobile thing and completely rambled until I forgot what I was going to say. Which is great. Oh, that I remember. I literally just looked at the little screen for the Elite Squad with Splinter Cell, and I just realized, people have been asking and begging and looking for a Splinter Cell game. And honestly, I would too, because I've played Splinter Cell. It's super great. The Mercs versus Spies or whatever multiplayer was fantastic. It was awesome. Really that vein of Splinter Cell or Siphon Filter and Metal Gear, like those like spy secret stealth action type games are awesome. They're super fun. The aesthetic is great. It makes for great games and great storytelling. And obviously people have been wanting Splinter Cell. And at this point, I think it's best if they don't make a new Splinter Cell, because it's going to hurt so much more when it comes out, because it's going to be terrible. Guaranteed. You can't convince me otherwise, because all their other games have either been meh or on fire, with the two exceptions. And those two exceptions are for very specific reasons as to why they're not bad, because of outside forces. So let me paint you a picture. So we have this beloved character, probably Ubisoft's most recognizable character, most popular character, because Assassin's Creed has a whole bunch of characters that kind of diverted from Ezio or whoever, and they're just, assassins, so they don't really have a character. Assassin's Creed is the memorable thing. All the Tom Clancy stuff doesn't matter because who cares? Except for the Splinter Cell, Rabbids. That's the most recognizable thing from Ubisoft, other than Splinter Cell. So it's just really Splinter Cell. That's the big thing, and people have been wanting and clamoring for it. Okay. And Ubisoft is aware of this. They are 100% aware of this. And you might ask yourself, well, if they're aware of this and it's almost guaranteed to print money, why don't they just make it? It's like, well, why put in the effort? Because I think they also know this too. I think they know they can't make a good Tom Clancy game. I'm pretty sure they're aware that whatever game they make is going to be a trash fire because they know they suck. So they'll just milk the IP. That's the whole point. Because Splinter Cell has been in so many different Ubisoft other titles, or referenced, or Easter egged in all these titles. Well, why? Well, because I'm sure the devs love Splinter Cell, so that's also partially why. But because Ubisoft knows, it's like, well, we have these other crap things. Let's just stick Splinter Cell into it. People will buy it. Because why not? Because we're scumbags. Because why not? And then that leads to the point. It's like, okay, let's say they do make a Splinter Cell, or let's say the Splinter Cell's in process. This is not going to be good. It's going to be bad. It's going to be a couple of things. It will either be riddled with microtransaction, like Assassin's Creed, where it's a bloated mess of a game that, even at its best, is only okay. That has so much junk in it. Only purely for the purpose to force you to feel frustrated and go into their cash shop to buy shortcuts to play less of the game that you bought. Even so much that they're just going to make an MMO or online service game where they can do that freely and be even more upfront about it. And then when people call them out on it, they'll be like, well, of course, it's a free-to-play, online multiplayer thing. Of course we're going to do that. And I bet you anything, the single-player games are still going to have that, because why not? They're Ubisoft. If it's single-player, that's what Splinter Cell is going to be. And it's going to be really sad, because that's not Splinter Cell. I mean, that's will probably be Splinter Cell in the modern era, a dead corpse that they're just flaunting around saying, buy me. Stick money in the dead corpse's pocket so that we can just take it out and give to our executives. Or it's going to be either be in development hell, that they're gonna announce it. They're gonna increase their stock or whatever, and then they're gonna announce it. Then they'll update it maybe like a year or two later. Say, hey, sign up for a beta, or hey, sign up for a newsletter, or hey, give us money, because why not? And then 4 years will go by, and it's like, oh yeah, that thing's dead. They just canceled it, because I bet you anything they're not gonna do the same mistake they did with the Singapore thing. They're not gonna tie themselves to it. So if it fails, they're just gonna kill it, because of course they would. Of course they will. They're not even gonna try to even salvage it. Sorry about that. Something paused my recording, and I just used that time to drink some more water because I'm kind of going dry here. But what was I saying? Oh yeah, it's either gonna be just dead on creation. It'll be flaunted, forgotten about it, and then just mentioned in a headline, yeah, it was on fire the whole time. Or it'll be C, or number 3. They're gonna shoehorn it and make it a live service type deal, and that's gonna sting so much, because that's not the point of a Splinter Cell. I mean, the fact that they even made Assassin's Creed, they're going to make Assassin's Creed a live service, is just crazy to me. Because, like Like, not how as in, oh man, how are they going to do it? It's like, how, like, why? Like, that was never the point. The only reason they're making Assassin's Creed a live service game, it's because they have 3 games in their pocket of being bloated, excessively grindy, and full of missions that don't amount to anything at all. Just like an MMORPG, but unlike an MMORPG where it's fun and there's almost a purpose to all this grind. Like, no, Assassin's Creed was purely built to just rake money. Not even the facade of having good gameplay or having good purpose. It's just not just make it grindy for money. They completely ruined it, from the previous franchises. And even then, the previous entries weren't even great. They were going down slightly. You could see the trend just go down and down and down. And that's what they'll make Splinter Cell. Except, instead of making games that prepare us for that option, the third option, they're just going to make it regardless and say, well, you wanted Splinter Cell, here's Splinter Cell. If you want to play it, here you go. And that's going to just hurt so much. All of these options. And I feel so bad for these Splinter Cell fans that have been waiting and waiting and hoping. Because, I'm a fan of certain games. I'm a fan of Gravity Rush. And I was disappointed and saddened of how I was treated. But at least I got 2 great games out of it. Sure, I will never get a third one for various reasons that we've talked about before. But you know what? At least there's closure in understanding that, yeah, I'm never going to get a third one. At least I know I'm not going to get a third one. But I have 2 great games in my memory that I can play and replay, and they're fantastic. And I can move them from PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 5, I think, or whatever. But with Splinter Cell, those games are in the past. They haven't made a new Splinter Cell in forever. And the fact that the option isn't dead for Splinter Cell, like they're giving players hope for a new Splinter Cell, is going to hurt so much more because they're just going to fuck it up. Because I know they don't, I know that the top end of Ubisoft doesn't really care. And they're not going to properly give the developers who probably do want to make a great Splinter Cell the ability or the help they need. I'm lost for words. Like the structure they need to create a good one. There's going to be, just make it. Just hurry up and make it. Also make it filled with microtransactions so we can get as much money as possible. That's what we're going to do. So it's going to hurt so much. It's like giving someone a little bit of hope only just to take it from them, show it in their face, rip it apart, and completely defile it and say, ha, you thought you were going to get something that you wanted. You thought you had hope, but no. We only gave you that so we can spit in your face and make it hurt so much more. And that's really sad. That's what Ubisoft is probably going to do. And you can say, well, you don't know that. I mean, it seems like this is a hate train, and it is. But, this is all hyperbolized or, this is over-the-top exaggeration. And I would tell you, what, that's a fair point. I don't know if a Splinter Cell is being made. I don't know what their plans are. I don't know who even's going to make it. But what I do know is the past works of Ubisoft in all of their franchises, in all of their different studios, in all the time frame that they've been alive. And time and time and time again, at least, not even, I'm trying to how to word this, at least one title or string of titles from each of their IPs has been terrible, dead, or just completely just decimated, or another word for vandalized or whatever, with terrible decisions, microtransactions, or just a lack of understanding of what the game used to be. And Splinter Cell's no different. Because Ubisoft is aware of Splinter Cell. They are so aware of what it is and what it brings to the table, that instead of honoring it, instead of giving it the credit it deserves, they're going to use it as a cash cow. They're going to completely abuse it. They're not going to give it the respect it deserves because they know people are going to buy it regardless. And that's kind of the sucky thing about, I guess, this commercial hobby, because it functions on people buying it and whatnot. And people are going to buy their favorite IP regardless of what happens, especially this one, because it's been so long since a new game has been made that if a new game is made, doesn't matter what it is, people are going to buy it because it's the first time in forever it's coming out. And they're just going to abuse it, and it's just going to be terrible. And that's my argument back to you, is like, well, what proof is that there isn't going to be, or what proof is there going to be that it is going to be good? Because all of the past teachings that Ubisoft has shown us is that they are more than willing and happy to ruin their franchises and look the other way and say, nah, it's fine, and then just kill it off later on. We see it today, we've seen it before, we've seen it years ago, and we'll see it in the future. And that's my prediction for that. But I don't want to end on a bad note. Let's end on a good note. Let's end on some cool stuff that also got released today. Actually, let's do two things, because they're pretty short. So the first one is the new character for Guilty Gear. It is what was his name? It's a funny name. John Golddick. What was it? Let me see here. Basically, he's a big fat American cheeseburger eating, alien hunting fighter. Let's see here. There it is. Gold Lewis Dixon. Hell yeah. Real American boy. No, he's great. He's super fun. I know with a lot of these fighting games, when they make, fat characters, not big muscly characters, but like, comedically fat characters, the only thing they kind of do with that is they make them super fast. Like, that's their gimmick. Like, oh, look, they're super fat and chubby and, unhealthy, but they're super fast. They're like a ninja, light on their feet. But with this one, no, they're making him the big, brawly, slow but super strong character, and I love that. I mean, he's got a Gatling gun, he's got a giant coffin with an alien inside, he's got a orbital laser strike. I mean, come on, how do you not like that? That's awesome. Can't wait to play him. It's gonna be great. And then our last piece of information, and actually, you know what, this is kind of great to end on, because this is like the good Assassin's Creed. This is what Assassin's Creed should have been, or should have, aimed for toward its future entries, and that is Ghost of Tsushima. Just some more information on that. Its expansion, Ghost of Tsushima, Iki Island. Lost my place here. Basically, it is a additional area that happens, I believe, on the second part of the main title, in which Jin meets a scouting group from Iki Island that was a Mongol camp. He then goes to Iki Island to try and stop the Mongol group, I believe the Eagles or whatever. And it's basically a whole bunch of things with new stuff, new armor sets, new moves, new locales, which look fantastic, even more so than before. Some new features. You can apparently you can have little sanctuaries for animals that you can save, and at a certain point it becomes upgraded or something, and you can just go back multiple times and just hang out with them and pet them all you want. I think the example they used was like monkeys and cats or something, but there's even more. I mean, that's just awesome. Like, it's taking can you pet the dog in the video game to the next level. Now can you pet all the animals? And the answer is yes, with Ghost of Tsushima, the actual good Assassin's Creed. I can't, man. See, that makes me happy. Assassin's Creed and Ubisoft is dead to me, but you know what? Something has risen on another part of the world, and that's Ghost of Tsushima. I wonder what their next game is going to be, because I don't think it's going to be Ghost of Tsushima, because Tsushima is the area. So it might be, maybe the series is called Ghost. Kind of like with Horizon Zero Dawn. It's not called Horizon Zero Dawn, it's called Horizon. And now the next game is Horizon Forbidden West. So I guess their franchise is now called Ghost. Which is also funny because Ubisoft has Ghost Recon, and that franchise is dead and burnt to the ground. Anyways, that's all for this podcast. I don't feel great ranting about this stuff. I don't want to be the kind of person that just rags on things and have a negative outlook, but with Ubisoft and what's been going on and what's happened in the past 2 days and whatnot, and what's happened before in other podcasts, at a certain point you kind of have to talk about it. And at least for me, it just kind of helps with more of a closure, because I see Ubisoft more as a dead place than just anything else. So it's just something to kind of get used to. If they can fix themselves, great, but I highly doubt it with the way they're going. But I will see you all next time. Tomorrow I'll be releasing some gameplay videos of the other games that I've been doing, which is really only the 2 Titan Souls and Death's Door. And I will see you next time. Goodbye.